Let's listen to Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, Level A2, Oxford Reading University.
You will find Part 1 in the description and on our channel. Part 2.
9. That night, Don Quixote and Sancho heard a loud noise in the distance. Don Quixote jumped to his feet. "Someone needs my help," he exclaimed. "Master, please, let us wait until morning. Who knows what kind of monster makes that sound?" Sancho said. "Sancho, I swore to fight danger. I cannot run from it," Don Quixote answered. "If I do not return in 3 days, go to my lady Dulcinea and tell her that I died bravely." Sancho got worried. He didn't want to let his master die. Quietly, he tied Rocinante's legs together. Now the horse could not move. When Don Quixote tried to ride forward, Rocinante stumbled and refused to move. "Looks like I have to wait until morning," Don Quixote said. To pass the time, Sancho began telling a story. He repeated every detail twice. It made Don Quixote impatient. "Sancho, tell it only once. Don't waste my time," he ordered. "But master, that is how we tell stories where I come from. Repeating twice makes them better." Don Quixote allowed him to continue. Sancho described a beautiful young shepherd girl. "Do you know her yourself?" Don Quixote asked. "No, master, but when I first heard the story it felt so real," Sancho replied. "A young shepherd was in love with her. He had to cross a river with a flock of sheep to meet the girl. Count the sheep for me, master, as I tell the story." Don Quixote started counting sheep, but soon he got tired. "Continue the story. I will imagine that all the sheep are already across. There is no need to count them all." "And how many sheep have crossed the river?" Sancho asked. I don't know," Don Quixote replied. "If you don't know how many sheep there is no point in going on," Sancho said. "Why, the sheep don't play any role in this story," Don Quixote exclaimed. "But they do, master, and we need to know the exact amount." They argued for a while, but Sancho refused to continue the story. He lay down and fell asleep. After some time, Don Quixote gave up and fell asleep as well. 10. As Don Quixote and Sancho traveled under the rain, they noticed a man on a mule. There was something shiny on his head. "Look, Sancho, that knight wears a magic mambrino helmet. That helmet will be mine," cried Don Quixote.
"Master, I think it is just a barber with a metal bowl on his head. He is protecting himself from the rain," Sancho explained.
But Don Quixote didn't listen. With a cry, he lowered his spear and attacked the man. The poor barber got scared. He ran away, leaving the mule and the bowl behind. Don Quixote took the bowl proudly. "Look, Sancho, the enchanted helmet is now mine." Sancho laughed so hard he almost fell from his donkey. "Helmet? It is just a bowl, master, a barber's bowl." "Sancho, you know nothing of magic. Clearly some stupid magician did not know its true power and turned it into a bull. But its magic is strong. I will wear it like this." Don Quixote placed the bull carefully on his head. Sancho couldn't stop laughing. 11. Don Quixote and Sancho continued their journey. Soon they saw some scary-looking men guarded by soldiers. Sancho got nervous. "Master, let's leave. These men are criminals, and the guards will not hesitate to hit us." But Don Quixote went forward anyway. He asked each prisoner why he was chained. One said he was punished for singing songs. According to another, he was taken prisoner for being unlucky in love. The third was wrongly accused. Don Quixote believed every story. "Enough!" he shouted. "These men are victims, not criminals. In the name of Dulcinea, I will set you free." He attacked the guards violently, and the prisoners broke free. When the battle was over, Don Quixote turned proudly to the men. "Now, my friends, you are free. You must go to Toboso and tell Lady Dulcinea of my courage." The men looked at each other. One laughed at Don Quixote. "Go to Toboso to be caught again? Never!" Their answer made Don Quixote angry. "You are all cowards. I set you free, and this is how you thank me?" he shouted. "He is a madman," the criminals said, laughing. They beat him and Sancho up and took their possessions. Then they ran away. The knight and his companion lay in the dust. "I warned you, master, but you always want to play the hero," said Sancho in a weak voice. "Better to fall for justice than stay silent," Don Quixote said quietly. 12. A few days later, Don Quixote made an important decision. "I want to go to the mountains and stay there alone," he told Sancho. "Many brave knights did this. One famous knight went mad with love and lived in the wild for many months. I want to do the same. I haven't seen my lady Dulcinea for too long. Maybe she is interested in some other knight now. When I think about it, my heart fills with pain." "Why don't you just go and see for yourself?" Sancho asked. "No, Sancho, I must suffer. This is what true knights do. My actions will prove my love." "Master, this is madness. It is autumn now, and the mountains are cold. You will freeze there all alone," Sancho exclaimed. "Sancho, don't you see? All acts of chivalry are madness. That's what makes them brave." Don Quixote wrote a love letter for Dulcinea and gave it to Sancho. "Take this to Dulcinea del Toboso," he ordered. "But she is just a farm girl, not a princess," Sancho cried. "If I call her a princess, then she is one. When a knight devotes himself to a woman, this woman becomes a noble lady. The knight's devotion changes reality. Now that I serve Dulcinea, she is as noble as any queen." Sancho promised to return quickly. Before leaving, he saw that Don Quixote wanted to hit his head against a rock.
Master, it could be dangerous. Choose something softer. Grass, for example, Sancho suggested. No, Sancho, cried Don Quixote. I must hit myself properly. I am a true knight, and true knights don't choose easy ways. This is the madness of my love for Dulcinea. He really is crazy, Sancho thought. Then he took Rocinante and rode away. Alone, Don Quixote walked in the valley. He was praying and trying to prove his love. 13. After riding for several days, Sancho stopped at an inn. It turned out that Don Quixote's friends, the priest and the barber, were also there. Sancho, what happened to your master? Where is he? The priest asked. Don Quixote is in the mountains, Sancho said proudly. He gave me a letter to Dulcinea. When he becomes the greatest knight in the world, he will make me the governor of an island. He will surely be a great knight, but knights don't give lands to their servants, the barber said, smiling. What? Really? I won't get my island, Sancho cried. The priest and barber asked to show them the letter to Dulcinea. Suddenly, Sancho realized that he didn't have it. He tried to repeat the letter from memory, but this version of the letter sounded strange and confusing. After hearing it, the priest and the barber understood that Don Quixote needed help. When Sancho went to his room, the friends started talking about Don Quixote. They were really worried about him. Then the barber had an idea. He decided to trick Don Quixote into returning home. He shared his plan with a priest, and they agreed to do it together. At the next table sat two people. One of them was Dorothea, a beautiful and intelligent woman. The other was a young servant who was helping her on the road. They overheard the conversation between the priest and the barber. The plan sounded funny, so they wanted to join the trick. I can help you, Dorothea said. I was an actress once. I can play the role of a princess who needs a knight's help. Soon Sancho returned. The priest introduced Dorothea. Sancho, this lady is Princess Micomicona. A giant has stolen her kingdom. Only Don Quixote can help her. Excited, Sancho agreed. Together, they went to Don Quixote. 14. Don Quixote was sitting on a rock when they found him. His clothes were dirty and torn after many days in the mountains. His armor was scratched, and his hair was messy from the wind. But he sat proudly, like a real knight. Dorothea came closer. She stopped a few steps away and spoke in a soft voice. "Oh, noble knight, save me from the giant who has taken my land." Don Quixote slowly stood up. He looked surprised, but very serious. Sancho and the others watched quietly. Then Don Quixote looked at Dorothea, came closer, and made a deep bow. "I promise to save your kingdom, princess," he said. "Our plan is working," the priest whispered to the barber, smiling. Don Quixote got onto Rocinante, and they rode away. Soon the travelers reached an inn. Don Quixote and Sancho went to their rooms to rest.
Meanwhile, the innkeeper served dinner to the rest of the group. He also stayed at the table because he was curious to learn more about Don Quixote. Soon they were joined by the innkeeper's wife and daughter, as well as all the servants. The priest and the barber were discussing the dangers of the chivalry books. "These terrible stories are the reason for his madness," the priest insisted. "I want to burn every one of them." The innkeeper shook his head. His family and the servants looked at each other in silence. "Burn them? Impossible! No, I will not believe they are all lies," the innkeeper said. "But you don't want to be a knight, do you?" the barber asked with a smile. "No, that sort of life is too dangerous," the innkeeper laughed. "I will stay in my inn. By the way, a traveler once left many old books here. Maybe you will find them interesting." "Let's read one of these books aloud," the priest suggested. "This way we can all see if they are worth it." The innkeeper agreed. The priest chose a book called The Story of the Brave Knight, Abindar. It was an old book full of adventures. The knight Abindar traveled through forests, fought monsters, and saved people in danger. The priest opened the book and began to read aloud. All the others listened to him carefully. He stopped every few pages to discuss the book with the listeners. Some of them liked it. Others thought it was stupid. However, none of them wanted to be a knight like Don Quixote. 15. A while later, when the priest was still reading, Sancho ran into the room. "Come quickly!" he shouted. "Don Quixote has killed the giant." Everyone ran to see what happened. Don Quixote stood in the middle of the room with a sword in his hand. There were a lot of broken wineskins around him. Red wine was spilled all over the floor. "Look!" Don Quixote shouted. "The giant is dead. I cut off his head." He hit again, and more wine spilled on the floor. Sancho started looking for something. "But where is the head? Where is the giant's head?" he asked. His hands were covered in wine. The innkeeper couldn't believe his eyes. All of his wineskins were destroyed. Sancho kept looking for the giant's head. "If there is no head, then I have no proof. Without proof, I will never get my island," he cried. "Poor man, he believes his every word," Dorothea whispered to the priest. Meanwhile, Don Quixote raised his sword proudly. "Justice is done. Dulcinea, your knight has fought for you," he exclaimed. Everyone looked at him in silence. Only Sancho kept searching among the puddles of wine. "Where is it? Where is the head? Without it, I am lost." "My island," he whispered again and again. 16. The next morning, Sancho saw the priest, the barber, and Dorothea talking. They had a plan to take Don Quixote home. They built a strong cage and put it on a big cart. Meanwhile, the barber dressed as a wise magician. Sancho watched them from the side. He heard Dorothea talk in her normal voice. He also saw the priest give her a simple dress, not royal clothes. Sancho understood that Dorothea was not a real princess. He ran to Don Quixote's room and woke him up. "Master, listen! Dorothea is not a princess. It was all a lie. And the giant you fought was only a wineskin," Sancho explained quickly. Don Quixote frowned and waved his hand. "Nonsense, Sancho! The inn is under a magic spell. That is why you think it was a wineskin. But I know the truth. I swore to protect Princess Micomicona, and I will keep my word." He went to see Dorothea and bowed deeply. Dorothea smiled and played along. "Oh, noble knight, you were so brave yesterday, but I still need your help," she said. "Anything you want, princess," Don Quixote replied. Dorothea showed him the cage. When Don Quixote saw it, he was very surprised. "What is this?" he asked. "Oh, I know. My enemy, the evil magician, wants to trap me." The barber, dressed as a magician, spoke in a deep voice. "Do not fear, brave knight. This is not punishment, but magic. It will carry you back to your village. There you will marry Dulcinea and live with honor." These words made Don Quixote very happy. "If this is my fate, I must accept it," he said. He let the priest and the barber tie him up. Then he sat proudly in the cage. 17. As the cart moved slowly down the road, Don Quixote was talking about great knights and chivalry books. "Books are written by scholars, but knights bring justice with their swords. We defend the weak, we fight giants, we live with honor. Tell me, who is greater, the man who only writes about courage or the man who lives with it?" he asked. Everyone nodded, impressed by the passion in his words. For a moment, Don Quixote sounded like a wise philosopher, not a madman. "He speaks well," the priest whispered to the barber. "Yes, you are right. His mind is sharp, even if his ideas are strange," the barber answered. A few hours passed. Suddenly Don Quixote frowned. "How strange! Knights can fly in the clouds, but why am I moving so slowly?" he asked. "Because, master, there is no magic. They are tricking you," Sancho cried. "Priest, barber, I know the truth. You have captured my master." "Sancho, keep quiet, or we will put you in the cage too," the barber replied. "It all happened because of those stupid books. All chivalry books are lies. They are all harmful." Sancho still tried to help Don Quixote see the truth. "If it is magic, master, why do you still need to go to the bathroom?" he asked. "My dear Sancho, you know nothing," Don Quixote replied. "Magic changes with time. This is a new kind of magic. It is hard to understand. You are not a knight, so you do not know about it." When they stopped for lunch, the priest let Don Quixote out. Don Quixote began to tell the story of knights and honor. His eyes shone as he spoke about magic and brave adventures. "Do you see, my friends? These tales prove how wonderful the life of a knight is," Don Quixote said proudly. "They teach us honor, courage, and beauty. Without them, life is empty." The priest and the barber looked at each other. The priest shook his head, but let Don Quixote continue. "And I," Don Quixote went on, "live with honor, courage, and beauty now. I have faced danger, magic, and pain, but I always remembered to protect the weak." He speaks with such passion. He really thinks his dreams are real, the barber told the priest. Don Quixote smiled. "For a true knight, dreams and life are the same," he said.
If our audiobooks are helpful, please leave a comment to support our channel. We have more great stories. Check this one out.